Hello and welcome back to the Kratom Sobriety Podcast. This is episode 141 and I'm here with Libby. How are you, Libby?
I'm doing fantastic this morning. Thanks for asking. How are you doing, Nolan?
I'm doing very well. Good night's sleep. Can't complain. So today we have a special episode. Jasmine and Lily will be returning to talk about some of their recovery milestones. They'll be interviewing each other, so stay tuned for that. But Libby and I wanted to talk really quickly about our first interaction with Kratom and the impressions we had of it and how we may not have known what we were getting ourselves into. So Libby, if you want to get started with that.
Yeah, I'm going to date myself here, but I think my first interaction with Kratom was like 2012, maybe 2013. And I do remember being in the head shop. Someone had told me about what was available there. And so I had gone in and asked the person working there, and they had basically told me like, yeah, it doesn't really pose much of a threat, because I was also at that point in time sober from harder opiates. So the clerk was like, yeah, it doesn't pose that much of a threat. The way I see it, if you continue to use it, your tolerance will get so high, you'll just stop. Nothing bad can happen. And so I remember taking it home and taking it and like feeling so almost like coffee, very stimulated, but in an opiate way. And I remember feeling very motivated to clean my house and doing that just the happiest mood in the world. And I was like, okay, there's something to this, you know? And that was my first experience. But yeah, it did seem kind of innocent. What about you?
Yeah, I think speaking of dating ourselves, I think when I first was introduced to it, I was still using an iPhone 3GS and I was messaging people with AOL. So if that's any indication, I don't know what it is. But the first time I tried it, it was given to me by a family member and they'd had a little bit of experience with it, but they didn't know much about it. But much like you, I didn't have any idea as to what it was going to really make me feel like. When I did take it the first time, I remember thinking, oh, it's just some gross green powder. And I grew up in a family where we have a supplement mom, is what one might call them. So I grew up trying lots of green smoothies and I looked at the powder and I just went, okay, it's par for the course. It might make me feel nothing, might make me feel something. And I tried it and I went, whoa, that seems a little bit more than just a supplement. Yeah, so I think that was my first experience with it. I remember it making me want to gag. And I also remember looking at the packaging and just kind of thinking, oh, there's nothing too much in this. It just seems like a plant and it doesn't seem like anything's going to come of it. And then a few years later, and there we are taking way too much of it and it's causing a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think unfortunately that's so many people's experience, and that's how it's even still to this day presented, as just like a plant, an herbal tonic, you know, and that's, we say it over and over again, but that's just the sad reality of this substance.
Oh, absolutely. And if someone had given me a package and it said on the package, this will give you a feeling that is adjacent to that of an opiate. This is dependence forming. This is an addictive substance. If that had been written on the package, I think I would have been a lot more cautious when I started using it initially. And I think that the packaging and the marketing of products like that have a long way to go.
Now, did you have experience with opiates or any other dangerous substances when you came across Kratom for the first time?
Only when I was in the UK. They do a lot of ketamine over there. It's kind of just like water to them. They're just doing it here, they're doing it there, they go out. And over in the US, ketamine is very closely associated with horse tranquilizer. So when you hear horse tranquilizer, the first thing that comes to your mind in the US isn't, oh, I should probably be taking that regularly. But in the UK, it's a lot less consequential. So I did have a lot of experience with that. But for the most part, Kratom was my first introduction to anything opiate-like.
The reason I ask is because even though the packaging and the presentation can be somewhat innocent and like that can really be deceiving for someone that's an addict, I think that a pretty common story is that once it hit my system, I knew that this couldn't, like deep down, I knew that something that hit me that way wasn't going to be a safe option for me. And I was just curious if you had that kind of experience also.
Yeah, thanks for asking. And it must have been interesting for you having had experiences with opiates in the past, taking that and feeling that way. In what ways did you feel similarly on Kratom to feeling how you were feeling on opiates? And were there any warning signs for you?
I mean, it just stimulated in some of the same ways, like and not in the same sedative way that a traditional opiate like morphine or heroin would, but in it's got a very similar vibe. And I thought, oh, I hit the jackpot. Like I've found the loophole. Like I figured it out. Like, cause the problem with heroin is that it's
Yes.
expensive, hard to get, and that you need it. You have to have it, And so I thought like, oh, this is cheap, easy to get, and you don't have to have it. So I've hacked the code,
Crack the
And
code.
so
Yeah. Cheat code. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think the final thing that I would say is that I don't know how many different forms of kratom packaging you've seen. You've probably seen most, if not all of them. But for the most part, what you see on the front is you see a leaf or maybe two leaves, and you see green, you see a little bit of white, but there's no red. There's nothing that's alarmist. There's nothing that's regulatory about the packaging itself, and nothing that would suggest that this is something that deserves caution. So I think that's one of the things that I think about frequently is how does packaging inform the decisions that we make when we decide to pick something up?
that's really interesting from a marketing perspective. I hadn't ever really thought about that, but you have a point there for sure.
Thanks for joining me today. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that really covers it.
Yeah, great. Well, Kratom quitters everywhere who are tuning in, stay strong, take advantage of all of the resources that we have available. Listen to our past episodes, whether you are a new quitter or you are a seasoned quitter, keep going and keep with it. It is worth it in the long run. Thanks for joining me today, Libby, and I will see you next time.
All right. Have a good night.
Everyone, this is Jasmine, and I'm here with Lily. We have both previously been guests on the Kratom Sobriety podcast, and we're super excited to be back here today to celebrate some milestones. I was on episode 61, and then Lily's episode was episode 94. So if you want to listen to our stories, any details there, please do. But Lily, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. And I'm happy to be back on and talk with you about how long-term sobriety actually feels.
Yes, same here. So what milestone are you achieving now?
So I just celebrated 2 years off of the Kratom tonics on February 7th. So as of today, I'm 811 days sober from it today. And I dyed my hair bright pink to celebrate the milestone.
Yes, I wish you guys could see. It's so cute. I love it. But congratulations. That's amazing and a huge, huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. And I'm actually celebrating a year of sobriety from the same tonics. And quite frankly, I never thought I would be here. When you're in the midst of it, it feels like sobriety is something that's really unattainable, but that's just not true. And that's a lie that we have to learn to overcome and not believe.
Congratulations. 1 year is a huge deal.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So yeah, we'll kind of get into just talking about what long-term sobriety has looked like for you, Lily. Do you mind giving just like a quick elevator speech about kind of your life story and what brought you to need to quit Kratom and like appear on the podcast the very first time?
Sure. So I am a yoga teacher, and I've always been kind of in the wellness world. And part of the reason that drew me into Kratom in the first place was the false advertising that it was a wellness tonic. And, the reason I started taking Kratom ended up being the exact reason why I quit, which was to improve my life and achieve my fitness goals, stay calm and focused, and feel connected and engaged with my loved ones. And the tonic at the time made me believed that it would help with that. And of course, as we know, plot twist, it did not. It ruined everything. And I still wanted those things. So I ended up coming off of that. And I can say that at 2 years sober from this substance, I am finally starting to really feel those things. It had to be completely removed from my life along with everything else. So I'm completely sober, no weed, no alcohol. Never thought I would say that, but that's where I am.
I love that. Congratulations on that too, because being completely sober from all substances is a really tricky thing to navigate as well. I'm the same way. And also me a few years ago would have never believed in a million years that that would be me today.
Absolutely. Yeah, here we are. Like, what is this world? And, sometimes you have to go all the way off the deep end with something you didn't realize was even that bad to kind of back away from everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me a little bit about what you remember most vividly about your first month off of Kratom, just kind of going back to that time period.
Yeah. So if you haven't listened to our previous episode 94, I talked about that process of coming off of it in depth. So just for reference, I tapered and I did this all myself without the help of anyone but a Reddit thread that focuses on quitting this substance. So I basically just wrote down a plan for myself and I tapered slowly off of, the liquid and eventually got down to a place where I could take my very last dose. And that first month off of it really sucked. It was the pit of despair. It was the worst. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was the worst. I felt really helpless and stuck. I basically had stopped doing something that my brain and body had wired itself into thinking it needed to survive. And then I took that thing away entirely. So my brain and my body were rebelling in every single way and making it known that it still wanted that thing that I took away. I remember crying on the couch almost every day after work and just feeling completely depleted, no energy, no motivation. One of the reasons why I started taking this tonic was to help with depression and mood. I thought that I could completely stop my antidepressants. I actually cut back on them at the time, thinking that this was the natural cure, that I could just do it instead. And it made my depression much worse than any other depressive state that I had been in on or off SSRIs. It just doubled down on me and it made it really hard. I had a lot of cravings and impulses. I had to fight through them. I was really worried that I would just have an impulse, get up, drive to the gas station and buy another bottle of this stuff. And I was so worried that I would have to start all over again. And I had to remind myself that, I stopped drinking alcohol with a 100-day challenge in mind. I said, I'm going to not drink for 100 days. And then I just kept moving that milestone. And I still haven't drank. It's been almost 4 years. And I didn't intend to do that when I stopped drinking. But I had to think about that the same way with the Kratom. Like, okay, this is day 1 and I'm going to try to get to day 7. And then I'd get to day 7 and I'd move it to day 14. And I just, give myself a gold star on a calendar and just keep going through it. It takes the pressure off to shoot for a shorter length of time and then keep adding once you get there instead of being like, I'm cutting it out forever, because that's a lot of pressure on yourself. Other than that, it was really hard because I felt like I had gotten rid of my very last trick to cope with life. Everything hit me really hard. I even, I had suicidal ideation for the first time as a daily thing. And I was in communication with the right people about that. I never felt like I had to act on it, but just having those thoughts come up was really scary. I had never had that before in my depression, and it really surprised me. And then just developing that term, I learned anhedonia, which is lack of pleasure from anything that would bring you joy. Like, I didn't want to go outside, didn't want to do yoga, didn't want to do anything I loved. Just so you know, it does improve. I'm just talking about the very worst part. It does improve.
It does. I went through that heavily as well. And it was around the 3 to 5 month range that it was the worst because I kind of experienced the pink cloud of sobriety. So the high off of feeling what it feels like to be sober again and just like you feel healthy and you're not dependent on this thing anymore. But then that kind of wears off and you're in this kind of weird lull period. And I feel like it is really common for people to relapse during that period because it's like, well, you kind of feel almost like life was just better when you had your drug of choice, but that's not the case. And you kind of just have to push through that anhedonia, which it can be really difficult. But yeah, I can attest as well. It does get better for sure.
It does. It does. It's just really horrible for a while. And you have to know that that's part of it. And it's not just you and you're not uncurable. It's part of the process.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes.
So was there a turning point in your recovery where you felt like I've really got this now, and kind of just maybe it was when the anhedonia kind of started to wear off? Like when did you have that feeling, if so?
I thought about this a lot. I wish I could say there was a specific moment in time that this happened, but it was very much an ebb and flow of feeling like I'm better and then feeling like never mind, nothing has changed, up and down. My brain was doing a lot of work to find this neutrality with, my hormones and just stabilizing dopamine and serotonin and all the things that were hyper depleted. There were so many good things happening in my life despite this addiction struggle. And I remember feeling really strong, overwhelming emotions. Even the good ones were a bit overwhelming once I stopped. I actually got engaged 3 months after I had quit. And I remember feeling really intense joy for the first time in a long time and being thankful for that, but also like, whoa, this is a big feeling. And oh my God, this is big. This is scary. Even the good feelings. There were a lot of like, what the hell moments too, like thinking I've got this one day and that was a good day and I wasn't sad. And then I would get a dopamine crash the next day where I felt so depressed and depleted because things got thrown off again, even though it was a positive, natural, high of life. My body was so used to being in this high state for so long that neutral after a good day felt like an extreme low. And then a normal low felt unbearable. And I would say, to be honest, like a year or so later, I felt more consistently stabilized. It takes a lot longer to stabilize completely. And I remember getting really frustrated by that and not knowing that that was part of it too.
Yeah, that's so real. Just the stabilization of our brain chemistry. And it's like something I learned getting off of the tonics as well, is that I've never really learned to cope with my emotions in a healthy way as an adult. Like I've always been on a substance to kind of either numb negative emotions or amplify good emotions. Like I love that you talk about the joyful experiences too, because I would typically take the tonic when there were really good things happening because I wanted to amplify those joyful moments. And I never really experienced those just sober as myself. Yeah. And that's been really interesting, and learning how to regulate. It's almost like I feel like it's like my inner child is learning how to regulate these emotions for the first time. So that's really super valid.
Absolutely. Regulation. Yeah, regulation. Yay. That's a word that I've had to use a lot the last couple of years. We should definitely talk about some of our grounding techniques before we get off of this too, because we should share those.
Yeah. Do you want to go into some of this? I would love to hear what you feel helps you.
One of the simplest things that I used to roll my eyes over, but now I use it often, is actually kind of orienting yourself in the room. If you get triggered and you're like, I'm getting frustrated or upset, is to press your feet into the ground, whether you're standing or sitting, and then look around the room and just kind of look from one direction to the other, like really slowly, and orient. And then to pick a color and start finding things that color. Just be like, okay, I'm looking for pink. That thing's pink, that thing's pink, that thing's pink. And then, in 30 seconds, you've distracted yourself by looking for pink things. It's like a little Easter egg hunt. It's like the primal hunting and gathering exercise, and your brain has that focus on only that. And then you can't think about what triggered you as much. And it's just a way to quickly bring you down without crazy breath work or anything like that. So that's the first thing I do now.
Yeah, I love that. It's like practicing mindfulness. That's something I've been trying to do more of, is being very present in whatever it is that you're doing. If you're going for a walk, it's like recognizing the colors. Like I've heard of people recognizing colors as they go on different walks, and like that tree is green. Let's look for other, green things. And then just practicing being in your own body and being really aware of your emotions and what you're feeling.
Absolutely. How about you? What's your go-to thing when you get triggered?
So prayer is a huge one for me. My faith is really important to me. And I feel like just when I'm feeling very anxious, which is sometimes hard to sit and pray when I feel very, very anxious because my nervous system is just all over the place. But doing my best to spend time with the Lord has been really helpful for me, and just diving deeper into my faith, whether it's being in the word or, spending time in prayer. I find that's been very helpful. And then also just practicing mindfulness as well, and just being aware of my body and my emotions, and sitting with myself and not immediately running to something to soothe those emotions. And now it's not substances, of course, but it could be someone else to help soothe those emotions, or scrolling on social media to help soothe those emotions. And they're still unhealthy coping mechanisms instead of just sitting with myself and allowing myself to really feel it.
That's great. Everyone has their thing, and you just have to keep coming back to it, whatever that is, whether it's counting colors or praying, anything. It's good. That's great.
Yes, I completely agree. What do you think has been the most unexpected part of life in recovery?
I would say actually meeting incredible women in recovery. I mean, even yourself, just other people that we share a story and we can connect with on that level, and having, it's developing new friendships that dive really deep, really fast. Some of these things, talking about trauma and addiction, these are things that might not ever be brought up in your typical relationship or friendship. And that's where we go first. When you're in recovery, you go right there very quick. And so you make friends pretty quickly. I regularly attend a recovery meeting online called She Recovers. SheRecovers.org is the foundation. And, I started sharing my story with them. I felt safe there. It's led by trauma-informed coaches and therapists. And it's kind of like formulated as if it's an AA meeting in which you can share for 3 minutes, but then they actually respond to you and validate what you say. And then there's a chat going on the side going like, woohoo, good job. And you go, girl. And oh my gosh, me too. It's very validating. And I have a community of women and non-binary people on there that, we all communicate and talk and reach out. If one of us is having a bad day, I can call them or text them or hop onto a meeting. And women that understand what it's like to feel the pull of addiction can help talk you through it. And it's a hard thing to do otherwise.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I love especially finding that community with other women, because something I struggled with in going to NA meetings and AA meetings locally, I didn't feel like there was a lot of like women maybe necessarily to connect with as well. It was like a primarily male heavy environment, which is fine. That's just, I guess how it is here in Austin, Texas. But I've found a recovery group through my church that's more of a similar like age demographic as well. And which I feel like sometimes there's not a lot of younger people maybe in recovery. And that's interesting too, to be able to connect in that way. I totally agree. It's like being able to really dive deeper into the root cause of the addiction, and even not just the addiction itself, but getting to dive deeper into like what trauma or like what inside of us has allowed that to happen, for sure.
Yeah, finding your group is really important. And I also found that, like you said about the age difference, can be really hard. And I tried to attend some AA meetings, and I think we talked about this last time, but they just didn't align with me at the time, and I didn't quite find my people. And it's just all about finding your people and finding that group that you feel like you can actually say something in front of and open up and listen to them. And there's different groups in the She Recovers. There's the meetings every day, and they're free every day, but they even started one for, I think, the next generation that's age 18 to 35. So like there's a specific group for that age range. Otherwise it's, I don't know, 18 through 80. It's everyone of all ages in there. I love it. So yes, find your people.
It's like we do not discriminate against age by any means.
Nope, because it does not discriminate against us. Addiction can hit you no matter who you are, how old you are, young you are. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, 100%, especially with Kratom too. I think that's been the most unexpected part about my recovery journey, is just realizing how many other people have struggled with the same addiction. And it makes it feel a lot less isolating, because especially with an addiction to these tonics, there's a lot of, deceptiveness around the marketing, and you kind of are gaslit into thinking that there's something wrong with you and that this product isn't addictive, but that's just not the case at all.
Nope.
So is there anything that you miss about Kratom, and how do you cope with feelings like that when those feelings of missing Kratom come up?
I mean, honestly, I do in theory miss the feeling that Kratom gave me from time to time, but it's the same as if one might miss a toxic ex-boyfriend. Like it has the same effect. Like, oh my God, that person was so terrible and toxic and nothing good came of it. But I want to talk to him one more time. I want to see how he's doing. Like, no, it's going to end badly every time in flames. Nothing's going to be different. So I do have those weird pings of like, oh, I miss that feeling, but I don't miss anything else about it. Like I don't actually want it. It's just recognizing that that is going to come up and it's a part of it. I will have strange, sudden sensory triggers in places that I would never expect. Even just driving down the highway, if I pass a place where maybe I opened up a bottle, I don't know how I did it, but somehow I'd open up a bottle while I'm driving on the highway and drink it. And then 2 years later, I'm driving down the highway, same spot, and I'll get that ping like, whoa, I remember opening one here and my brain remembered. And it's like, hey, you should do that thing again. Remember you did that thing and you liked it and you did it here in this place at this time. It's like, oh my God, shut up, brain. And even hiking, I'll go on a hike and it's so terrible. I'll go on a hike. I'll be in nature. I'm all blissed out. I'm like having a great time looking at trees. And then bang, I'll get that feeling and it takes over for a second. And I just have to stop and I have to name it. I have to say it out loud. That's what I'm trying to do is speak it out loud so it doesn't take over and it doesn't control me. I say, wow, I just had a craving. I'm on a hike. I'm in nature. I'm having this feeling because I did this on a hike before. And my brain is remembering that. And that's okay. And then it goes away. If I say it to someone out loud, that helps. Maybe I say it to myself out loud, or maybe I write it down or write it in a note on my phone. I just have to get it out and it doesn't have power over me and it does go away. And it's not fair. If you date someone toxic, it's not fair that they keep plaguing you. And it's the same thing as this substance. It's not fair, but it happens.
That's so true. And I feel like it's like I'll have similar feelings to where I will almost be angry that I even tried this product in the first place because I know what it feels like and that there's actually something to miss there because I'm like, if I never would have tried this, I never would have even known how it made me feel and I wouldn't even be tempted to take it again. So it's like something in sobriety you have to deal with for the rest of your life. But like you said, cravings are typically pretty short-lived. And when we practice that mindfulness and being aware of our bodies and that we're actually experiencing a craving and saying it out loud to someone else, you're so right, is so, so powerful. And it takes the power of that substance and that craving away from you.
Yes. It's all about diffusing the power and just placing it elsewhere, putting it elsewhere. One of my other coping tools is just shaking, just like getting the energy out, like pressing your feet into the ground and bending your knees and just like bouncing and letting your shoulders shake and even just tapping your body with your hands, all kinds of different techniques that are out there. And Qigong, they do that, the body tapping and just shaking, just getting the trauma out, as they say. It's not that easy, but it's another way to move the energy and just distract yourself and be like, hey, I'm alive. I don't have to do this thing. I can get through it. Okay, I'm over it.
I totally agree. It's like exercise or going for a walk or just some type of movement is absolutely essential. And speaking of just like movement and exercise, how has your relationship with your body or your relationship with your health changed since quitting Kratom?
I've always been pretty positive about my body and my weight and just in general. I'm also a naturally thin person. So I have that, I don't know, my whole family is thin. I guess I have the thin privilege, but what happened during my Kratom use was that, you tend to lose weight when you're on Kratom, whether you are meaning to or not. It just starts to happen. And I will say that I'm certain at this point that what I had lost was mostly muscle mass, because now I look back on pictures of myself from that big long year of addiction, and I was smiling really big and I looked thin, and I remember feeling happy with how I looked at the time. But now I look back and I can see that it was like this creepy kratom filter had been put over me. It was affecting my mood and my looks and everything, but it wasn't really me in there. And it was like a false confidence and false progress. Like, oh, I'm getting thinner and I'm getting all these compliments and things actually really are hard right now. And I'm faking it till I make it until I pass out, kind of a feeling. I feel like I was taken hostage by it and I didn't know it yet. And so looking at those pictures is kind of hard. I've actually gained back, well, I've gained 20 pounds since my lowest weight on Kratom, but it's actually been really positive. My butt has gotten bigger and I am not getting any complaints from anyone. My butt is huge, not huge. I just like my butt is very large for me and it's kind of fun. Like I feel stronger. I can do more things. I have more endurance and I have calm, stable energy that isn't like a frenetic, falsely induced power that Kratom gave me. I have the ability to teach harder yoga classes and I feel fitter and I'm able to gain muscle and it's staying on my frame. And I feel more confident in my body. And I'm just accepting that this is a new phase of my life and a new stage. And it's okay to be bigger or smaller. And I feel like I found a happy place with my weight. And it's actually the highest that it's ever been. And that is not something I thought I would say, but I feel really good in my body right now.
That's amazing. And there's something about being able to feel yourself get stronger. And I completely resonate with the not worrying so much about the number on the scale, but just like how you feel and how your body is just able to really do so much for you and being really grateful for that when you're not in addiction. I think that's absolutely huge.
Yeah. I know we talked last time about how both of us received so many compliments when we were struggling the most and we were at our lowest weight and how the Kratom was just taking over and like eating us skin and bone. It was eating our muscles.
Yeah.
And how awful and hard that was to realize at the time, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So how do you think your understanding of addiction has changed from when you first quit to now?
Well, I feel like, knowledge is power. And the more that I learn about the science of addiction, the process of addiction, and other people's experience in addiction, the more I know and the more that I can learn about myself and what I went through. Some things that, my therapist has taught me that I unfortunately learned a year into my Kratom sobriety, which I wish I had known at the time, but I didn't. I know them now. I'll share them now. Two things. The pause method, it stands for post-acute withdrawal stages. There's actually stages that you go through in detox and in recovery that are expected. And then also the matrix stages of recovery. That's also different stages by amounts of time, like 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, etc. And the feelings that will come and go with those stages. And if I had known that, in month 1, this is the list of expected emotions that you will feel at this stage and that you're not crazy, like, you might have suicidal ideation at this time because of this. And you might have irritability or you might have extra confidence right now. And then the next stage, like, that's gone. And it's not you sucking at life or going downhill. That's the process that you're in and you're just tracking yourself. It makes you feel like you're not crazy, you're not messed up forever. You're matching the timeline. So those are things that I wish I had known that I know now. And I know we already touched on this too, but that addiction can just be this thing that happens to you regardless of your age or anything. You can say all you want that you're different or what happened to you or I've got it under control, all the things that we say. But addiction is its own beast and it has you under control. And at the end of the day, we're just mammals and addiction acts as addiction and it does what it wants to anyone, no matter how special you think you are. And the most jaw-dropping bit of information specifically about Kratom addiction that blew my mind, and this is from an episode of this podcast. It was the one with Dr. Casey Grover, the addiction specialist. And that was episode 117. His interview changed my entire understanding of what this shit did to us. So about 25 minutes into this episode, Dr. Casey Grover talks about how kratom activates the opioid receptors in the brain at high doses. And this is the quote that freaked me out. He said, 100% of people who are regularly exposed to an opioid or opioid inducing substance like kratom, 100% of people who are regularly exposed to it for more than 2 weeks will develop opioid dependence. 100%. And then 2 to 15% of those people will also develop an opioid use disorder, which is opioid addiction. So, like, literally everyone. Everyone. And so if you had this stuff for 2 weeks, if you had it every day casually for 2 weeks, or even if it was every other day, and eventually it became once a day for 2 weeks, you are hooked. It already got you before you knew what it was, before you had any information. If you just had this drink for 2 weeks, like, you were basically addicted and became dependent on it, or worse. 100% of people is hard to argue with. Like, that's literally every single person. I felt so validated. There was no other way this could have gone, sadly. Anyone and everyone who had a bottle of it was going to get hooked. And, does alcohol have that kind of hold on people this quickly? No. And we all know that it can be addicting and the risks of it. I think I replayed that quote like 10 times in a row because I was so flabbergasted. I was like, really? Like 100?
It's validating. It's very validating because I hear of so many people who have never had an addiction issue in their life or genetically don't have any addiction history getting hooked on these things. So I 100% believe it is everyone as well.
Everyone.
Yeah. Like addiction runs in my family, but I've never been physically dependent on something like I was with the tonics. And it has given me so much empathy for those who have been physically dependent on any sort of substance, who have struggled to pay their bills because they've spent all their money on whatever drug of choice it is, or just not being able to get up in the morning until they dose. Like, I never experienced anything like that in my life. And it's like, wow, I have a whole new perspective on the type of empathy that should be shown to those who are deep in the trenches, or even no matter how much you're taking. It's just if it's something that you feel like you need every single day, or you feel like you have really intense cravings towards it and it feels like a problem, it's a problem for whoever is experiencing it, for sure.
Absolutely. So much empathy. I am the same. How can you be frustrated with people in addiction or just push it off as like, oh, that's someone else, or oh, they have issues? Like, no, it gives you those issues half the time.
I'm like, I will literally never judge a single person, because I used to not understand at all and be like, how does someone end up on the streets because of this? And I'm like, no, now I fully understand how that happens, and very quickly too.
I was only drinking one a day and it still hooked me in an extreme way. And I'm a lightweight and sensitive, I guess, but still one bottle hooked me. And I think part of why I didn't take more is I'm just a cheapskate, and those things are like $8 to $10 a bottle. And I'm like, I'm going to spend $20 a day on it. Not that anyone goes, woohoo, I'm spending all my money on it. But I kept it low because I had a lower income and I wasn't going to keep going. And that was, at the time, that was a choice. But I understand completely how things can get out of control. No one wants to spend $20, $100, $200 a day on this stuff, because we've heard people up to almost 20 bottles a day, 12 bottles a day. It just depends.
I think 24 was the most a guest on the podcast has had. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it keeps rising. So no one wants to spend that kind of money on anything that's not necessary. And unfortunately, it makes itself necessary, whether you like it or not.
Yep. And you start just justifying more and more. Yeah. I wish I would have been more of a more stingy about my spending. Because got into quite a bit of credit card debt from these bad boys. But kind of shifting gears a little bit, just talking through like relationships. How have your relationships changed or transformed or shifted since quitting kratom?
Yeah. I feel like it was hard for a while when I was kind of in it and struggling and wasn't talking about it with people yet, because I was still really confused and ashamed and just trying to like get through the day. I went to my she recovers recovery meetings, and I was able to talk about it there, and it kind of got me used to it. And then I started talking with more friends about it, and kind of just seeing how it was received. I kept testing it out. And, eventually I was able to tell my sister and then my parents a bit later. I just wasn't ready. I needed to kind of understand it more, I guess. I feel like my relationship with my family has improved a lot, and I just feel closer with them and able to bring up harder things that were just a little too scary to kind of talk about for me before. And I just felt like I kept being able to talk about more things and open up about it. And I will say that in terms of friendships and relationships in general, just people in my life, anything that felt misaligned became glaringly obvious, and I really couldn't ignore it. Like when you're sober and you're very aware of everything, you're aware of what doesn't work, and people, places, jobs. Like my tolerance for misalignment was really low. And part of that was just recovery and having trouble with things. It also was a good direction to go in, like, ooh, that person, they've always kind of been hard to get along with. Maybe I should look at that. Like maybe I should see if there's something deeper there or if I'm just being irritable. And, I lost some friends that I had had for a long time. And I was able to see their true colors. One, because I wasn't on anything anymore. And two, because I was actually speaking up completely and saying what I needed to say, and they didn't like that. And I think that I would have been a lot quieter before. I would have just stayed quiet. I would have taken my substance of choice and forgotten about it, until the next time. And that can repeat forever until you're like, why am I friends with this person? So I lost some friends that way. People closest to me have said that they feel a shift in my demeanor, that I'm, calmer and able to handle things that are difficult in a different way. And I think my window of tolerance for hard things has expanded finally. Part of that is, trauma work in therapy and doing EMDR, which has been very helpful for addiction, and talking about how it works and reducing the stigma around it. And then in my marriage, it's been really hard to be the completely sober person in the marriage. Here and there, my husband drinks sometimes and he smokes weed sometimes. And, if we get into an argument and then we go to separate rooms to kind of cool off, like he gets to smoke weed and cool off, and I get to sit in all of my feelings, and I don't get to, come down from that in the same way. And that's fine. That's my choice and journey. And sometimes I get jealous. I won't lie. I'm like, oh, I wish I could do that and just be like, F it. Like, I'm going to turn that off. But part of the healing is not turning it off and turning towards it, which is so annoying. I annoy myself all the time. But these are the phrases that used to annoy me, and they're helping me now. Like, you learn to accept these annoying phrases for healing. But I'm learning, and it's a slow but steady process. Yeah. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I feel everything you're saying so deeply.
Is that the same?
And yes, like as a chronic people pleaser, it's been historically very hard for me to set boundaries in my life. And this past year has been really, really hard in setting boundaries with family members specifically. Yeah, it's just been something where, it's like people may not understand why I have to set these boundaries now, but it's because I've been numbing myself. And I love what you said about tolerance for misalignment being really, really low, because I feel like I've struggled with that my whole life. And now it's not low anymore. It's very hyper aware of
Yes.
misalignments and, boundaries being crossed and things. And I've just had to really speak up about that, because it just festers, and it's something that you just can't numb or push down anymore. And I'm proud of you for just really sitting with those emotions. And like you said, going towards it and not, trying to suppress it, because that is a really hard thing to do, but it's also incredibly rewarding. And that's truly the best thing about sobriety, is getting to reap the benefits of working through that healing process, for sure.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I'm proud of you too. We're doing it.
Thank you. I'm so proud of both of us. Okay, I love this next question.
Mhm.
Just talk through like tools and habits that have stayed with you the longest in your recovery, and which ones maybe did you have at first and you've kind of let go of, or maybe you've used everything long term. Like, what does that kind of look
Mhm.
like for you in long term sobriety and just like the tools and habits that you like to implement?
I think that the consistent healing method that I turn to, whatever it is, it involves sweating. So, whether that's taking a brisk walk that you do not want to go on, but you force yourself on because you're going to go walk and it's going to help and you're going to be annoyed, you're going to do it. Sometimes you have to talk yourself into the annoying walk when you feel horrible. And then sometimes when you feel better, it's like, woohoo, let's go sweat. I have more energy. I'm going to do more of a high intensity workout. Or you have zero energy and you go to a sauna and you lie there and you sweat and you get into a hot bath at your house and you get it as hot as possible and you lie there and you sweat. You have to sweat. It's like the body's natural, one of the natural ways of detoxing and just moving things through and just being warm, getting heat on the body. Right now, I'm going through a phase where I'm obsessed with this hot pack that I have. It's literally like rice in a bag and I microwave it for 2 minutes. It's just like good old fashioned rice in a sock or whatever, and I microwave it and then I put it either on my chest or on my shoulders, just kind of that calm pressing weight. And just make sure that you're wearing a shirt under that spot. If it gets too hot, you can get kind of hot and itchy there. But I'm even going to bed with this hot pack, just kind of pressing on my chest or my shoulders. It helps put me to sleep. It's really calming. And that can help when you're overstimulated. Also, alternatively, is ice. So I have conflicting thoughts about cold plunges and ice baths and all that stuff. I've read both things that, like, if you've been through significant trauma or you're dealing with something that's very fight or flight method, if you're trying to do something for fight or flight and you stick yourself into a full body cold ice bath, it can be not as helpful for you and it can make things kind of worse and it elevates your cortisol and survival tactics. And then you end up feeling really depleted later. So it can be kind of like too much, right? And so something that is a little more accessible for the average person is an ice cube, is one ice cube. And you rub the ice cube on your face and it's awkward and cold and weird. And you can put it in a like plastic bag or even just like a really thin, like tea towel, just like a towel, and rub it on your face, get it wet and rub it around. And that creates that sensation that's distracting and it's cold. And it's a shift in your awareness from, oh my God, I'm panicking to, oh my God, that's cold, And the same thing with your wrists, right? Where the skin is thin, like either your neck or on your wrists, like close to the vein, just like rubbing the ice cube there can be really helpful. Again, just shaking your hands and just shaking. Humming has also been helpful. I think they call it vagal toning. It's just basically humming where and you can even put your hand on your throat and feel the little vibrations. And that's something that can be really helpful if you're in a car and you're spinning out and you're thinking about stuff and you're thinking about your substance and you do not want to be. Just start humming. Just make your exhale a hum. Every time you breathe out, just make some noise with it. And when you're humming, you can't think about something else. It's another way of distracting the mind. So if you're thinking about your substance and then you start humming, you have to consciously think about how you're doing that. And then you stop thinking about the other thing. And that can help like snap you out of it. And these are not cures, they're coping mechanisms. But if you have a lot of these, they all add up to get you through bad days. And sometimes nothing works and you're just like, screw it. Like sometimes you have to lie on the ground and so actually lying on the ground can be helpful. Feeling the cold ground, like that can help.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And sometimes you're just overwhelmed or like too overstimulated and you don't want to take the time to do any of those things. But if you just force yourself to, and it really is true that all of those habits add up and make such a big difference over time. I'm a big fan of going to the sauna. I've also started going to the sauna recently and it has quite literally changed my life. So if you are in addiction recovery, like the sauna is absolutely wonderful. And I didn't know that about cold plunging too. That's interesting. And I like the idea better of rubbing one cube of ice instead of just dipping straight into a tub full of ice.
Yeah. I mean, it can work. Like I have a friend who she lives near the ocean and it's very cold, and she does a 3-minute cold plunge in the actual ocean every day. And she keeps her hands out of the water and her face above the water. So she does, arms, neck down. And so for her, even though she's had a more challenging life experience, that works for her.
Mhm.
And so you just have to kind of try it out, see how you feel, and see how you feel like 2 days later. I've listened to so many different podcasts and read so many different things, and there's mixed opinions on it, right? And so try it, see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, you're not broken. It just doesn't work for you. So, I mean, it can feel nice to go in a cold plunge for a second. I can only do it for like 15 seconds anyway. So go you if you can.
Same. I know I would much rather be in the sauna for sure, but I do see how cold plunges are definitely helpful for a lot of people too. What advice would you give your 1 month sober self if you could go back in time?
I would say that you've done a huge and courageous thing just by quitting, and that was a very challenging thing just to stop, and you got over a big hurdle, and you still have some time ahead of you that will also be hard. And to treat yourself like you're sick with the flu, when you're in that acute withdrawal stage, do really simple, slow things. Try to avoid overstimulating places for a few weeks. Eat simple foods, drink extra fluids, take baths, like just pretend like you're sick and be really gentle with yourself. You can try to do some things that might feel hard because you can always stop or leave if you don't like it. Just keep trying. And you'll likely feel a little broken and confused and sad for some time, but it really is not forever. It will feel like forever, and it won't be. And you'll get better in waves, and it will shift. Also to, reward yourself as you get to different milestones, celebrate, give yourself little treats, find things that bring you really simple, easy comfort, even if it's going to visit an animal shelter and petting the cats and dogs. Like, do things that are going to be gentle and soft, literally soft things. Go pet soft things.
Literally and figuratively.
Literally wear a soft blanket, wear cozy clothes, pretend like you're sick, take care of yourself.
Beautifully said. Yeah, I agree with everything. That's wonderful. Yeah, and just ultimately it gets better, and just be easy on yourself.
Yes.
So as we wrap up, I just want to kind of ask if there is anything you think should change in terms of Kratom being marketed and regulated, or just any parting words on just anything you've discussed and talked about. Would love to kind of just hear any final thoughts on that.
Well, to address the, the way that Kratom is being marketed and regulated, everything needs to change there. I don't think that it should necessarily be banned, because that just makes people want it more and makes it worse for people when they do have it. I think that we desperately need regulation of this product and all Kratom products. We need information about what it is. We need visible writing that says, there is Kratom in this, and there is an addiction risk and what it can do to people. I don't think I ever would have picked up a bottle of it if it had been marketed accurately. I bought it online and it was advertised to me as a health tonic, and I believed them and trusted the podcasts that recommended it and thought that it was A-okay. And why on earth would it be sold and approved if it wasn't? I didn't doubt it. And if more information is out there to see and to read about, then you'll actually be warned, and then you can choose for yourself. It's just not like a blind, ignorant purchase. We all know what alcohol is and the risks involved, and it says this may cause birth defects, and like we all know that it may cause addiction, and we know that. No one knows this about Kratom yet unless you've been through it. I mean, there's like a class action lawsuit right now that I recently became aware of that I'd like to join. Maybe we can put a link to it in the episode notes. And, there's people rallying around this because there was no information about it at the time. And there's a little bit more, but parting words would be just keep going and keep trying. If you feel like no one gets it or no one has it as bad as you, guess what? There is. There's someone out there who gets it. There's someone out there who is saying the same thing, like, no one has it as bad as me. Like, there is. Keep listening to this podcast because there's a wealth of information on it. I kind of took a break because I needed to set addiction thoughts down for a while. But when I came back to it, I found like 4 episodes in a row that made me go, oh my God, same here, or I didn't know that. Keep talking about it. You'll be surprised who's in the same camp as you or knows someone that is or needs your advice. One of the episodes that I learned something cool about was with Justin K on episode 122, and that he's going to become a certified peer support specialist for substance abuse. And that inspired me to pursue that same certification. I'm actually starting next week.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
Thanks. I didn't know it was a job. I didn't know it existed. Because of this podcast, I learned about it. And it's an 80-hour online training. It's through the Medicaid system. So it's basically a year-round training you can do through different places online. It's all online. It's like $100 to apply, $150 to take the test. Like it's affordable and made to be something that you can do. Like they need more people to do it. And instead of being like a therapist role, it's more of a like I've been there too, peer support type role. You could do group work or work at detox centers or, teens or whatever. It's less about trying to fix people and more about like walking alongside them and having the lived experience of addiction or mental health issues and showing them that recovery is possible and worth it and doable over time. And just knowing that that's an option out there is so great. I knew that I wanted to help more people. I didn't want to go back and get, a master's degree or anything. I already have a college degree. I have lots of experience in life and I wanted to dive right in. So thank you to Justin, wherever you are, for talking about this. And I'm sharing it too. Certified peer support specialist. It's awesome. I'm so excited to start that. That's my parting words is keep helping people, keep helping yourself, and you'll help others eventually.
That's amazing. Congratulations just on 2 years and to signing up to become a peer support specialist. I think that is absolutely incredible. And just the way that you're giving back to the community and just those who are struggling is super, super important. And is important just in the recovery journey in general. And you're so well spoken. And I just really appreciate you continuing to share your story. It's been really impactful and it has inspired me a lot as well. So thank you so much, Lily. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. And yeah, we will see you guys later.
Thanks, Jasmine.